Welcome into episode 33 of the Cleveland Sports Realm. I'll take a page out of Kevin's book. We'll do this one in honor of Alonzo Gee. And, from the Cavaliers way back about 15 years ago or so. This is the 33rd episode. You could get it on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. The whole band's here, myself, Kevin, producer Derek, and we have a guest host this evening. Kevin, introduce our guest host.
Our guest host is no other than your brother, Jerome. He's been a guest on the show before, but you guys have never done the show together. So this is going to be an interesting dynamic here. Rob, we're happy to have you back. It's been since episode 7, so 26 episodes later, you're back in studio.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. I requested to be back, and my request was obliged. I said I want to just some takes here. So it is the first time that Jerome and I have hosted together. Perhaps we'll get into it like Stephen A. and Skip.
Maybe.
Yeah, just don't make me be the lady that moderates it, please.
No Molly Queerum or Queerum?
I don't think so.
No Molly Queerum for you?
It's Karam, isn't it? Karam?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyhow, let's get into it. Let's begin with the Guardians. I mean, what a disaster. What an absolute disaster of a week. I mean, you lose 2 out of 3 to Cincinnati. We were kind of fired up when they put 11 runs on the board. And we're really fired up for that Mariners series, Kevin.
Yeah.
And they went out, and the series was a total disaster, total failure. Nothing good comes out of it. Jose's 39 on-base streak ends. And then, you also have Clase blowing a save, and it resulted in a sweep by the Mariners. And it was just a total disaster. And then they did go ahead and win a game against the Giants last night, but they haven't won a series in like 3 weeks, and it's really starting to wear the fan base down a little bit.
Yeah, I think that Mariners series just about encompasses the entire season so far for the Tribe, and that's just been good to great pitching, and the bat's just not showing up. So obviously very frustrating to watch that Mariners series. And then, like you said, Jerome, we were coming off a pretty good high off that 11-run performance against the Reds. Obviously the Reds took the season series from us, losing to Tito. So I thought, maybe coming after that last game, maybe we could have carried some momentum into Seattle, and the Tribe had other ideas.
Yeah, and Luis Ortiz, after a really dominant outing at Yankee Stadium. He struggled at home against the Reds. Rob and I attended that game together in Tito's homecoming. And then he pitched terribly in Seattle, too. So that's 2 bad starts in a row for Ortiz.
Yeah, I don't know. I do think, with the sport of baseball, you do have to dial it back a little bit. You still are only in June, and things could turn around for the Guards right now. I mean, you take a look at the season, and, yeah, it's been disappointing. They really haven't been able to swing the bat at all this year. But I think, you're hovering right around 500. You're staying in the mix. You're right there in the wild card mix right now. So I think as long as, eventually the bats can turn around, then you're going to be right there and potentially another playoff run on the horizon. But there are concerns, and it is annoying to not get over the hump year in and year out. And this looks like that will be another season of that again. But at the end of the day, I do think you got to dial it back a little bit, Jerome, because you can't blow up about it. Of course, there's a lot of lost series right now that are happening, but eventually, they're going to figure it out, I think, and I think they're going to sneak into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, and typically they do end up figuring it out, or at least they're around that 85 to 90 win marker just about every year. They're at least in the mix. I think the thing is, though, when it comes to that Mariners series that's so deflating, is that the Tribe went into that series 3 games above 500, and the Mariners went into that series 3 games below 500, and they both came out of it 500. So the Mariners now have the tiebreaker over us in what's a very competitive AL right now. So I think that's what actually makes that series a little bit more deflating from a fan base perspective. But yes, and it's a standpoint I've stood by for just about as long as I have watched baseball, is that I go series by series, not necessarily game by game. So, yeah, they've lost, 3 series now in a row? Or is it 4?
I think it's 4, because you lost the Yankees series, the Astros series, the Reds series, the Mariners series. So, yes, it is 4.
Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, if they string together, 2 to 3 series wins in a row here, not necessarily even sweeps, they're right back in that playoff mix with like 80 more games to go, 80, 90 games to go. It's a long season of baseball. We've been over that. So my hope is not lost on this team, but I do think they do have to step it up relatively shortly.
To Jerome's point, though, you do have that hope as a Guardians fan because you usually see them make a run down the stretch. We know they've been competitive in baseball for a lot of years now. But to Jerome's point, you do wonder, you look at the lineup and you're like, well, where's the firepower in this lineup other than Jose Ramirez and Kwan, who's hurt right now?
Yeah,
right.
Kwan's playing through the wrist. You're right.
Right, so it's concerning that none of these guys can figure it out. You got a lot of bats that you brought in that can't figure it out, like Lane Thomas is a big one that still can't seem to get his
And he's
shit
had
together.
about like the season from hell with his injuries and stuff. That's been frustrating.
He's had a rough year. I mean, I think he's
but altogether, other than his big home run in the playoffs, when has he really found his groove as a Guardian?
No, even last year when we acquired him, I think the first 2 months of it was pretty. I mean, honestly, his regular season was pretty miserable until playoff time.
I mean, they didn't call him Payne Lane Thomas for nothing.
That's true.
That's exactly right, and that's what it kind of leads me to my next point here, fellas, because you guys brought up Lane Thomas, who is having the season from hell, which is very unfortunate for him in his walk year. And obviously we know that probably the third best bat on the team would be Carlos Santana, and he's also on a 1-year deal. So the front office is probably at a point, though, where they need to act quickly and win games quickly, because if not, Chris Antonetti, Mike Chernoff, and we know ownership's dying to do it, that sell these pieces off. And so that's why I'm thinking it's very important. Now, it was nice to beat the Giants last night, who have had a very nice season, and spoil Rafi Devers' debut as a Giant. More on that later in the program. But no, I mean, they've got to win now soon, because the front office is either got to make a decision. You got to buy, you got to sell, or you got to hold. And one of those three are coming. And I'm thinking if things keep going the way they are, goodbye Carlos, goodbye Lane, any other, maybe Clase. We've heard his name tossed around in rumors. The one that I hope they don't move would be Kwan. But, with only 2 years of control left, you wonder about that. And then you also have to wonder about the Jose Ramirez element of this. He's got to be beyond sick at this point. He's hitting 320. I mean, he's got to be feeling like he's shouldering the whole load, and there's no bats around him, to Rob's point earlier. So there's a lot of big decisions looming here, and I do get it. It's baseball. Look, even the Yankees the last 5 or 6 games have not been able to score runs. And you could argue that the Yankees are too Judge-centric, just like the Guardians are too Ramirez-centric. But I wonder, though, with the front office at this point, these next handful of series are really important, because this is the time of the year you decide whether you want to buy or sell.
Which does make me worried, because we've talked, Jerome, with this front office up until about 2021, 2022, and we talked about this last week, is that they had earned, the blind faith of the fan base. Just about every move, I didn't really care who was involved or who we were acquiring. I had faith in the front office that those players were going to develop. The players that we shipped off were gonna depreciate in value, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term. And the last 3 to 4 years, it hasn't been that way. They've probably lost more trades than they've won. So coming up into almost deadline season, you could argue, with the players that they could be shipping off or looking to acquire, you're right, they do have to make a decision. And I'm worried, just based off of recent history with them, if those trades are even going to pan out for us short term or long term.
And to Rob's point earlier, Lane Thomas's overall tenure has not been great, but I think what he did in the postseason absolutely made the trade a win for the Guardians and eliminate because that's what you got him for, as a postseason bat. He delivered, and they have a bagillion prospects. You can't hold these prospects forever. They've actually held on to them. To your point, the front office has failed holding on to them too long. So then their value just gets right down the toilet. It diminishes entirely. So at this point, you wonder what they're going to do. That's why I think these next handful of games are important. Now, they did get off to a good start. Again, beating the Giants last night. As we record this on Wednesday, they'll play the Giants tonight, and then tomorrow when this releases. But you wonder what they're thinking right now. I mean, for me, it's kind of tough. It's a tough spot to be in, because you're only a half a game out, but it doesn't really look like a team that's going to make much noise. And so do you want to go all in? That's a decision they got to make.
It is, and like you said, it's hard not to think right now that a lot of these other teams, especially in the National League, are not calling up the Guardians right now and saying, hey, you know, what can we offer you for a couple of these pieces right now? I mean, you take a look at a guy like Kwon, who you said 2 years left on his deal, right?
Yeah, two after this.
I mean, that's a perfect rent-a-player right now for somebody that's looking to push themselves above contention, because we know Kwon's going to go hit 330 somewhere.
Right.
I mean, wherever he would go. Obviously, we would want him to stay, but, like, you know, that's somebody you're going to have to pay a lot of money, and not everybody's going to take a hometown discount like Jose Ramirez did. And to your point about Jose Ramirez too, it is very frustrating for him. I'm sure he's sick to his stomach, like you said. And I do like to make the joke with you, you know, for people that don't know, you know, Jerome and I live together along with Kevin here. But anyways, the players that Jerome likes to hype up, I like to, like, you know, kind of razz him a little bit and be like, yeah, no, they're not that good. So Jerome obviously loves Jose Ramirez. And I just keep saying to him, he's got no RBIs. He's no good. He's got no RBIs. But that is, like, when you talk about it seriously, the fact is that he's one of the best hitters in the game. He has, like, 34 RBIs, maybe 50th in the league or something, and it's because nobody gets on base for him.
Yep.
It's one of the most frustrating things to watch. I mean, the guy's hitting 330, 320, 330.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, he can't get any runs around the diamond. It's really frustrating for him to watch, I'm sure.
Well, especially when he re-signed that deal, the expectation is that the money that he was foregoing was going to be spent elsewhere to boost this roster, and it hasn't been. I mean, I guess you could argue, you know, the Jimenez deal, but not here anymore, and we're not paying him anymore. So,
well, and you look at their off season and the money they did spend, and take a quick look at this. Okay, they spent, I believe, 13 or 14 million on Santana. I would say that's been money well spent. He's been the third best hitter on the team this year.
Carlos Santana could be batting 150, and you would be saying that it was money well spent.
No, I'm serious.
So am I.
Yeah, I know you are, but in all honesty, no, look, the guy's hitting 250. He's got 8 home runs. I think he actually leads the team in RBIs because Jose's usually on in front of him. I think he's got 35, 36 RBIs. Like, and he's still walking at a pretty good clip. So, like, he has been the third best hitter on the team. So you could say that's money well spent. The bullpen additions haven't worked out. I mean, they spent.
I was excited for Junis.
So was I.
Yeah.
He was my player to watch in the preview.
Yeah.
He had a great April. His May was a toilet, and his June hasn't been much better. You know, they spent $4.5 million on him. They spent $7.5 million on Sewald, who we haven't seen pitch since April. So those decisions ought to be put into question by the front office too, because a lot of people said, "Hey, your bullpen was pretty good. You probably didn't need to add to it." I understood capitalizing on his strength, adding to the bullpen. But this looks like a failure by the front office where they should have added to the offense, and they didn't.
The problem with the Guardians, and when you look at it from a meta perspective over the last whatever it is, you know, 10, 20 years is, and everybody knows it, is we don't spend enough money. And it's really more of a baseball problem. There should be a salary floor.
Absolutely.
But it's so frustrating because we're talking about these players, these small-time players. Like, and, you know, you look at who was available on the open market. Like, there was a guy like Juan Soto. And I'm not saying that the Guardians should have landed him 100%, but, like, why not? I mean, he's somebody you could take a play at. We certainly know that the ownership has the money for it. So it's like, it's ridiculous to think that, like, they've been so close so many times, and it's just they go after small-time guys. I mean, I'm not saying they should be a big market team, but if you look at the teams that go and win, it's the teams that go after the players that are consistently good in baseball. And we know from baseball, and I said this to you the other day, Jerome, is that it is so hard to stay good for so long in baseball. Players are good. They might have 1 or 2 years of hitting 300, and then they're going to be mid or terrible the rest of their career.
Great point.
There's very, very few players that you see that are 300 and above their whole career. And you had a guy, you know, you've had guys over the past couple years that are available like that, and you just refuse to go and get them. And it's just annoying. It's frustrating as a fan. It's frustrating in this city. Say what you want about the Browns. They went all in on somebody they thought was going to be really good. They paid the ever-living hell out of him. Obviously,
the albatross.
Things happen the way they happen, but, like, they weren't afraid to go after it. They weren't afraid to go get a guy that showed that he was everything in that point had led up to showing that he was a great player.
Right.
No, and it's the
Same
risk
thing
management.
with the Cavs and Donovan Mitchell. I'm sorry to interrupt.
no, you're
but
okay.
I'm on a kind of a tangent here.
It's all right.
But no, it's true. Like, you look at a guy like Donovan Mitchell. I mean, you knew you were going to have to pay him. You traded for him, and then you went all in and paid him. And it's like the Guardians have just always refused to do that. You know, it's really, really frustrating.
The only time you could really argue that they did do that was 2017, coming off that World Series appearance, that they went and got Edwin Encarnacion to add that power bat to the lineup. But ever since then, no. And the thing that's frustrating for me is that I look at it, and I do agree with a lot of the ways that the Guardians organization does go about things. I feel like sometimes you, like in the smaller market of Cleveland, you can't be spending the big bucks, so sometimes you do have to trade your star player. I was in favor 3-4 years ago of trading Shane Bieber.
I remember
to
that.
try to get the assets for Bieber because I thought his value was going to start depreciating, which it did. So it was proven right on that one. But it's so frustrating because I do agree with a lot of what they do, like try to build the farm system, try to remain competitive, because baseball is one of the most unpredictable sports, if not the most unpredictable sport. If you sneak into the playoffs, you have a shot. If you're hot at the right time, you can win the World Series just sneaking into the playoffs. We've seen it happen. We saw it with the Nationals within the last 5-6 years that happened. So what's frustrating about it is that that's the Guardians' mantra right now, but you're not going to continue to keep doing that with the bottom 5 payroll in baseball year in and year out.
Right.
At some point, you have to go all in.
Yes.
At some point.
Right. And I think to both your points, the only thing we can hope for is when the new ownership does take over that he's willing to spend more money.
Yeah.
And back to your point about the Browns, the Browns throw cash at everybody. I mean, they overpay a lot of guys to stay here or come here because, they have that reputation of being a bad team for a quarter century, essentially. And the Haslam problem has never been the lack of spending. It's who they spend on. And where I'd say the guy who has it the most right is Dan's not afraid to spend, and then he does spend on the right people talking about the Cavs.
Typically,
yeah. I mean, I totally disagree, though, like not with anything you guys said, although I'm not afraid to disagree. But anyways, I mean, I disagree with people that say in sports you can't buy a championship. You can absolutely buy a championship. I mean, the Dodgers did it last year.
The Cavs bought their 2016
The Cavs
championship.
100% bought that championship. If I'm not mistaken, they're probably still paying out some of that luxury tax.
It might be.
I mean, at the end of the day, though, the Guardians have always refused to go all in. You've had guys available in baseball. Like I said, there's such a small percentage of players in baseball that they're consistently a powerhouse, consistently a good player, and they come available, and it's just so frustrating. You just watch the Guardians fail to do it over and over and over again. And I know what Kevin's saying, and I do somewhat agree. Yeah, you kind of have to play to your MO, to what you had. Like, they are a small market team, but ownership has the money. They're saving money because they want to turn more profit. I mean, it's that simple. It's a business. They want their balance sheet to show more profit, and they don't want to, they don't want their expenses, their salaries to be higher. At the end of the day, I mean, there's a lot of baseball. So this whole conversation is very meta. I mean, it's a baseball problem. It's a salary floor. It needs to be implemented. People say salary cap. No, who cares about a salary cap?
Well, because the players would never agree to it. They're making buku bucks everywhere they are, so the players would never be like, no, we're not taking the maximum salary that we can make down. It has to be a floor where you're offering the players more and remaining.
Right.
I 100% agree
a
with
salary
that.
floor, helps the players.
Oh, 100%.
And then you get these guys like, the Paul Dolans, that they'll give it up. The Bob Nuttings in Pittsburgh, the John Fishers in Oakland, or wherever the hell they play nowadays. The Stu Sternbergs in Tampa. Like, these guys who just are year in and year out refuse to spend a profit. And I mean, it's interesting because you're right. Now, what I think is going to ultimately happen in baseball is some of these small market owners are trying to band together to get them to create a cap. And unfortunately, what we're going to have in baseball is, I think at the end of next year, because the CBA's up, we're going to have a lockout that I think could last for quite a while, because the owners and the players are just coming from two different stratospheres in baseball.
Screw it. Let it happen. I mean, let the damn lockout happen. I mean, listen, I think baseball has done a good job over the past 5, 6 years, whatever it is, implementing the rule changes. It's sped up the game. It's made the game more interesting. They've done a really, really good job with this stuff.
They have.
They knew what their problem was, and they addressed it. And I'll say the other problem is that I used to tell you all the time is baseball doesn't market their players well enough. Well, that's starting to change. They marketed the hell out of Francisco Lindor last year when he was having a really, really hot end of his season. They've been marketing the hell out of Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge.
Yep.
You really can't look up baseball without seeing those two guys.
Yeah, I agree with you, and a lot of people, including myself, have been critical of Rob Manfred, the commissioner. But I think, to your point, he's done a lot of good things. Like, they've absolutely stepped up the way they market their players. They really have. They zeroed in on that, realized it was an intense problem. And you know, I criticize the NBA a lot on this podcast, but that's something the NBA probably could have taught them well, and I think they learned from the NBA.
Even though I will say, even though the NFL does supersede the NBA in ratings, TV ratings, that's because you have a lot of the older crowd that still watches cable TV watching the NFL like it's reading the Bible. Like, they won't watch anything but the
right.
NFL
That's
on
their
Sundays.
Sunday tradition.
The NBA is far superior in their international audience. You go to China, you go to Europe. Look how many European stars there are now. The NBA is far superior. To your point, it's because they've marketed their players. When you turn it on, an NBA game on a Wednesday night, and they're marketing for Friday, it's Steph Curry versus Donovan Mitchell. It's LeBron James versus Kevin Durant. It's Luka Doncic versus Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Right.
It's never and that is a good thing. That's what kids want to watch. That's what mildly interested people want to see. They want to see the kid, the guy that's going to go out there and put on a show.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with everything you said. And like versus now, and I think baseball's absolutely taken that from them. It's the right thing because you see a big baseball matchup, and let's say it's the Guardians and the Yankees. You see a picture of Aaron Judge swinging the bat and Jose Ramirez. Like, they've done that, and they've done a lot of good. They still have some more work to do, and I think everything we hit on is a solid point.
Yeah, and I will say one more thing, too. The NFL, I think, also is starting to follow that model, and you see them pushing into Europe. You see them pushing into South America now, and they're marketing their players more. I mean, it's what every sport needs to do.
Right. He's right. I think he's
I
right.
agree 100%.
Absolutely. So, well, I think to put a ball on this baseball conversation.
Wait, can I say one more thing?
Yeah,
I think we need to bring it back and say, to come full circle, you gotta say that they've done a really good job with a lot of things, that player marketing, and they've done a good job with changing the rules. The next step they need to take is to implement salary rules. They need to implement parameters around the salary, because that's ultimately what's going to bring more joy to Guardians fans like us and make the sport more competitive all in all. And it's going to dispel with these stupid Dolans and Bob Nuttings of the world that want to turn profit. I don't think Bob Nutting owns the Pirates anymore, but...
No, he does.
Does he?
He still does. Still
thought he
doesn't spend a
sold the
damn
team.
dime either.
Well, I mean, and look at the NBA when it comes. If we're talking salary cap, I mean, look who's in the finals right now. It's Oklahoma City and Indiana. Do you think anybody would have predicted that at the beginning of the year? It's because there's a salary cap, and there's basically even playing. Obviously, we've talked about the apron, the first, second aprons that you can go into, which I know you're going to make some cooking joke. That's what you've done every time that it's brought up.
We don't know how many aprons we need when we make the brownies in the kitchen.
Yeah,
1, 2, 3, 4.
But you get the point. If you're gonna pay more than any other team can, like, you're gonna pay extra for it. Like, you're gonna pay times and a half or double what you're actually giving that player, because I mean, if you can afford it, you can afford it, but we're going to make things even, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And that's what baseball has to do a better job of, and I agree with you. And I think you guys both hit on a lot of good points, which I agree with most of what you said, almost all of what you said. And to bring it full circle, let's see how the Guardians do against the Giants. That was a good start. Get a win last night. Now go win your first series in a couple weeks. Then maybe next week I'll be singing a different tune into this microphone, because right now my tune isn't all that
That's typically
positive.
how it goes.
Yeah, so.
What tune?
Well, maybe I'll be singing Celebration next week.
Celebrate good times. Come on.
So, not to continue the negative trend here, but let's move on to the Browns, the big story in Browns world. Minicamp has wrapped up, and these guys won't be back on the field in an organized facet until training camp, which is not all that far away. And I know that's the other thing the Guardians got to keep interested, because the big time, some of these people, if the Guardians aren't 10 games above 500, they're more concerned on who the Browns' backup long snapper is going to be. That's the way it goes around here. And so the Browns, they will be getting all the eyeballs here in a few weeks, but mini camp wrapped up, and it seemed like everything went pretty smooth out there. Nothing to really complain about. We're not going to get too high or too low on the videos. But then Shedeur Sanders yesterday caught doing 101 and a 60 in, I believe, Strongsville on 71.
This morning. Not yesterday. This morning.
Oh, yeah, I guess it would be this morning as
we're recording Wednesday evening.
So it was 12:30 this morning. You're right. I believe it was in Strongsville on 71. I'm going to ask you guys both, and then I'll give my opinion. Big deal, not a big deal. Kevin?
Well, I think the big thing with this is that we're jumping into the reason that he slid in the NFL draft was all the concerns about how he represented himself in meetings and things like that. And then the second that minicamp basically is over, he's out until 12:30 in the morning going 40 miles over the speed limit. It's funny because last week's episode, I had gone on and said I was starting to switch my tune a little bit on the Shedeur thing. I had saw the videos of him staying, a half hour after practice. I had seen the videos with him interacting with the kids, either at schools or at the practices themselves. And I was starting to buy in a little bit. And this was the exact reason that I went on that rant when they drafted Shedeur Sanders after the draft. He slid to the 5th round for a reason. We've never seen a slide like that in NFL history. And you're paying for it already. I mean, obviously it was only a 5th and a 6th round pick, but now, we talk about circus clowns all the time. I mean, it's the Circus Browns. They're going after all these divas all the time, and I'm not happy with it because it's more negative attention for the Browns when we knew that this was probably going to be negative attention going into this scenario, and everybody's laughing at us again, I think.
Robbie?
Okay, so I do very much disagree with Kevin just from a large perspective. I will say I was on this podcast however many months ago, and we were talking about Shedeur and drafting him to the Browns, and I was very much on the wagon of, okay, don't draft him because it'll be a media circus, this and that. But I do think at the end of the day you have to go where the talent is, and I think Shedeur is that. I think eventually he will come around and be a solid quarterback. Whether it's with the Browns or not is the question. I do think eventually he'll find some success in the NFL. As it relates to the speeding ticket, listen, Shedeur comes from, he very much represents a culture of, you get your money and you spend it and you flex it, and he's very much in tune with social media and those kinds of things. And I'm not going to vilify him for going to get a speeding ticket. It's not like he killed somebody. It's not like it really hurts the team. I get the fact, I see you rolling your eyes, he could have hurt somebody, but it's not like, we're not going to pretend, like it was like a huge deal. Like, listen, Shedeur comes from the culture of you get a good sports car, you drive it fast. Like, there's a lot of other quarterbacks.
He's Prime's kid,
There's a lot of other quarterbacks out there, I'm sure, that are driving their sports cars fast and just not getting caught for it. Like, it happens. I mean, it's just part of the culture for him. And, I'm just not going to overreact to it. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like, I think you would need to see some other kind of infraction, like some that goes along with it, that accompanies this infraction to make it a big deal. If he was pulled over for a DUI, okay, now we're talking, okay, does he have self-control? I just think he got in a sports car and drove it fast, and I don't, there was 3 guys this morning when I was going 77 south to work that drove their sports cars a little too fast. I was like, I'd wish the cops would get them instead of Shedeur, but, it is what it is. Like, people drive their fast cars fast. Like, I just don't think it's that big of an issue.
I don't either. I really don't. I mean, to me, look, do I wish he wouldn't have got caught in the ticket? Yeah, because all it's going to do is bring all the naysayers like Kevin here to just start piling on and find something to criticize about the kid. And you know what? He did give him easy material. He gave him an easy punching bag. And
Jerome, if this was Deshaun Watson, you would be losing your mind.
that's right.
He makes a good point. Shedeur, you're fine. If you're listening to this, you're all right, man. Go ball.
If this was Deshaun Watson, you would be losing your absolute mind right now over this.
Yeah, I probably would be. But
Hey, boys.
But
Boys.
Shedeur doesn't have the legal history and problems that Deshaun Watson has. That list is a lot longer.
No, and I know, Rob, to your point that it's the culture of like what he had grown up in. You know, he's grown up with the bling, with the fanciness, like all.
He grew up in an NFL locker
But that
room.
doesn't mean that you like at 12:30 in the morning are busting 100 miles an hour down the highway. It's not like he was late for practice or something and was busting his ass to get there. Like he was just at 12:30 in the morning driving like a jackass. Like I just think it's I just think it's stupid, and I don't want to say it speaks to his character, but these were what people like were saying and what analysts were concerned about was him off the field, not necessarily getting into legal trouble, but the distraction away from the football field. And this is exactly what happens right after minicamp.
Hey, anybody? I got caught doing 78 and 60 a couple weeks ago. You know,
That's 18 miles an hour compared to 41.
Hey, I don't have the car. I drive an Equinox. Shedeur probably drives something much quicker.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Have the reports been released what he got pulled over in?
I haven't seen what vehicle he was in.
Yeah, I don't know. I just, again, like...
It wasn't a Chevy Equinox, though, I'll promise you
I
that.
mean, there was a Porsche that drove by me this morning, and he had to be going 110. Like, I mean, it is what it is. Like, and it was not the profile, but it was definitely, like, it was a older businessman. He had his, like, popped collar and his real nice fit, and I was like, oh, he's going to his $300,000 a year finance job somewhere. Like, he had the real press. Like, it's just part of that culture, too, is like a sports car goes fast. We're going to drive it fast because we have the money for it. Like, I don't think it speaks to his character at all.
I don't either.
Well, I said it, not that I'm saying it speaks to his character, but I think it speaks to the concerns that people
I
had
agree
prior.
with Rob. If he got, if he was, let's say, he got caught with, some type of illegal substance, then I'm saying, you know what, this is a big deal.
Okay.
But him speeding, I'm not going to freak out. I mean, look, not saying this guy's an example by any means to set the right way. Josh Gordon got pulled over for speeding constantly.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Like, I mean,
LeBron got pulled over for speeding. I remember his rookie year.
I don't think it, like, again, it's just like you get in a sports car and you drive it fast. I know I keep saying that, but, like, if I had a Porsche or whatever the hell he was driving, I'd probably be doing 100 at least at one point. And, I mean, seriously, like, at 12:30 at night, like, that's when you're probably thinking to yourself, there might not be that many cops out right now. Let me try and do this real quick. I floored my Malibu to 90 before, 95 even it got up to. It wouldn't go over 95, though, unfortunately. But I tried to get it as fast as I could before. Anyways, I think about it from this lens. Like, even if he had weed in the car, and weed is 100% a legal substance in the state of Ohio, and it's legal to smoke weed in the NFL or have weed in your system. So logically, there's nothing that anybody could do, but I still think it would speak to, a little bit of his character. Like, man, where's he coming from at 12:30 at night with a illicit substance in his car?
Sure.
There was nothing in his car. There was, like, the cop obviously, like, he would have made headlines if he could. I'm sure he was probably taking his finger against the window of his car, making sure there's nothing, any kind of infraction going on there. Like, if that cop wanted to, like, find, like, I'm sure he was looking hard to find something to bust him for.
Absolutely.
And there was nothing there. Just he was going a little fast. So, like, I don't know. I kind of look at it like, so what?
Same. Now, I agree with you entirely. Now, if he consistently starts getting tickets, then kids start driving at a better speed. But this is something that I think, basically Kevin Stefanski or even Tommy Rees as the offensive coordinator pulls him aside. Hey, they're looking for speeder. Let's be a little more careful when we're out there on the roadways.
I'm sure that conversation probably happened today.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, that conversation probably already happened. I'm sure Dion probably called him and said, "Hey, listen, kid, you know that they're looking for shit on you right now, so you should probably slow it down a bit."
So I don't think it's a big deal. Like if we'll see what happens. The reports, like you pointed out last week, Kevin, everything's positive, glowingly positive about him after minicamp. So,
and I know you guys had the conversation last week that training camp ultimately doesn't, or minicamp videos don't mean that much. But let's not put aside that he has looked the best of the 4 options.
Right. No, he absolutely has. I think there was a stat out there that they had said ever since they started tracking Brown's minicamp stats or something like that Shedeur Sanders had like the best completion percentage or something like that amongst Browns quarterbacks since they started tracking that. So I'm not taking away anything from what he's been doing in minicamp. And I mentioned that last week that I was starting to come around to him. I just think it's one of those things that with the concerns that they had talked about throughout the draft process and after the draft process of why he had slid, this coming out so shortly after minicamp does concern me a little bit.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. But, I mean, like I said, I'm trying to see your point, but I'm having a tough time doing it,
You know what I got to say? I got to say one thing. Bust down my AP. Perfect timing.
Horrible.
Well, anyway, so that'll do it for Browns talk. Let's talk a little something that happened in the division.
Wait. Can I ask you guys something? Because I haven't really caught up with you guys, on
the
online
pod
here. Who do we think is leading the race out of the 4 quarterbacks? We don't have to just give me your thoughts. I'll give you mine.
Yeah, we had talked about this a few weeks ago, and
I wasn't here.
No, that's what I'm getting. You gotta let me finish here. We did talk about this a few weeks ago, and there has been some things that have changed in the Browns facility. I mean, we're still talking about the same 4 guys. I don't think Dillon Gabriel has a shot to start week 1. I think Shedeur Sanders has a sliver of a shot, but I think Flacco and Pickett would really have to blow it in order for that to happen. I'm still kind of leaning Kenny Pickett. I think is going to end up being the week 1 starter. I disagree with why I think Flacco should be the starter week 1, just based off of how he had performed in the Kevin Stefanski system prior. And I'm not obviously going to pretend like I've been to any of the practices and have seen every throw that Flacco and Pickett have made, but just based off of Joe Flacco basically being a folk hero in this town and everybody in this town loving him and embracing him and him doing the same exact thing and leading us to the playoffs in 2023, I think it would be very disappointing to see anybody else running out onto the field for the Browns starting week 1 at quarterback. It would be disappointing if I saw anybody else but Flacco.
Okay.
Yeah, I unfortunately think it's going to be Kenny Pickett. A couple sources down there who I trust tell me that he's still taking all the reps when the media is not present, and I think I think that's the way they're trending. Now, what I do also still think that could be going on here is that the Browns could be really, really hyping up Kenny Pickett so that he's the guy that they trade when ultimately another quarterback goes down in training camp. But not that you want to speak into existence anybody getting hurt, but at the same time, a big injury is coming. It happens every year in training camp. So
yeah.
I think, the more reps they give Kenny Pickett now, the more film other coaches have on him out there. Obviously not game film, but, practice film. And they could flip him. And then I think in that case scenario, I think Joe Flacco absolutely starts. And what I ultimately think is going to happen is Kenny Pickett's going to be dealt. Joe Flacco's going to start for about 5-6 weeks. Then when Joe starts, ultimately throwing interceptions, because we know that's the way he plays.
Yeah.
I think then you see Shedeur, and Shedeur doesn't let it go, and Dillon Gabriel's ass is glued to the bench all year. Your thoughts?
Yeah, what do you think, Rob?
I agree. I've been having kind of a hard time deliberating in my head of what I want to happen between what I think should happen. I would like to see Shedeur out there. Obviously, we know that he's probably not in the position to start week 1. I think he would place way too much of a mental load on himself and ultimately flame out. Whether that means he would find success or not after. I think it is obviously a 2-horse race between Pickett and Flacco. I just you see the game film on Kenny Pickett, and he's just so awful.
Yeah, he's not good.
I mean, he's just not good, and it's just so hard for me to wrap my mind around him getting another chance to start like old Kenny Two Gloves. Come on now,
Yeah,
what are we doing here?
Yeah, with him, I don't even know if I'd say it's awful. I would just say it's just stagnant and boring. It's not like he's throwing a ton of interceptions. It's just a very complacent offense that's not going to put a lot of points on the board, and it's just they don't turn the ball over, which is obviously what you want, but it's just that offense isn't going to lead to
and that's where I do
anything.
think.
Yeah, but when he does try and go for the big play, he does turn the ball over.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I do think that Kevin Stefanski was so infatuated with Kenny Pickett is because every game last year, every game that we lost, all 14 of them, what was the first thing Kevin would come to that podium and complain about? Boy,
Turnover
we lost
battle.
the turnover battle.
Well, that's been his MO as a coach. He says he has it posted in the locker room, the turnover ratio on the year.
And that's where I think maybe he would, cling towards a Kenny Pickett because, to Kevin's point, Kenny Pickett loves slants and loves quick outs and all that, and the offense is boring as all hell. But and then anytime he tries to throw it over the middle, he does turn it over, to your point too, versus Joe. Joe will turn the ball over, but a lot of times Joe Flacco turning the ball over is like a punt because on 3rd down and 15, he'll take a shot to nobody, and it's usually picked off by the free safety, so it's like you're punting it down early.
The thing is, I don't mind when Flacco does that. The thing I hate, and we saw it numerous times in 2023, is that he'll do that on 1st and 10. On the 30-yard line. He will he'll launch it into double coverage on 1st and 10. Those I hate. When it's 3rd and 10, 3rd and 15, and he does it okay, we were going to punt the ball anyway, but it's 1st and 10, we're thrown into triple coverage, it's picked.
Well, people forget, and I always remind Browns fans of this because they love to wear their Flacco round and find out shirts and Joe Flacco this and Joe Flacco that.
It was a fun time, you have to admit it.
It was fun, but he ultimately threw away the season. He threw 2 pick sixes to open the second half and put us out of the game against Houston.
Yeah, but we're not there without him.
All right. I mean, I just don't think that's a very good argument. You pay I don't know.
I mean, he had a bad playoff performance. He also won a Super Bowl. Granted, it was a long time ago, but I mean, it was one bad playoff performance. He's had plenty of good playoff performances prior.
Ultimately, I think if they want, like Joel Bitonio said, if they want to lean on the run game like they have in years past, especially in 2020, and made the deep run that they did in 2020, then I think they should probably start Kenny, which a lot of people are upset about Nick Chubb. I'm not very upset about it. He did a lot of good things for the city. That's great, but I'm really excited about the 2-horse run game we got here, and I especially
like both
Judkins. I do think Judkins is going to be a stud. He has all the makings, as Junior Soprano says, the makings of a varsity athlete. That's what he says, makings of a varsity athlete. That's what Judkins has, Quinshon Judkins. He has the makings of an NFL athlete. I mean, he does. The way he cuts, his speed, his strength. He is going to be – I think he's going to be an absolute stud and a man amongst boys.
No, I absolutely agree. I'm excited to see how I'm excited to see. That's something that we had mentioned last week, too. It is heartbreaking from a diehard Browns fan standpoint to see Chubb go, but in the same breath, I'm very excited to see how Judkins and Sampson work together because they are going to be the little bit of thunder and lightning, and Judkins is he doesn't have – I wouldn't say the breakaway speed that a Travion Henderson or a Saquon Barkley or obviously these top NFL backs has, but he is fast and he bursts through the hole, very powerful. I think he's the definition of an AFC North running back. I really do.
Yes.
So I'm very excited.
Smart runner of the football.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to see how they work together. I am.
And I think Sampson's a perfect kid's great at pass coverage. Or pass protection, and he can catch the ball out of the backfield. And that's where Judkins, is going to have to get a little bit better at. And so where he's not as strong, that's where Sampson. And, I mean, look, there's a lot of talent that comes out the SEC. And for this kid to win SEC Offensive Player of the Year, man, there's got to be something there with Sampson, too.
Yeah, and I do think if you want to run that boring Kevin Stefanski offense that they ran with Case Keenum, I think you will have to rely on the screen game a lot, obviously, rely on the run game like Joel Bitonio said. And, you can dump down a lot to Judkins and Sampson. I think you could have a somewhat successful offense if the defense can take another step this year. Or not another step, I shouldn't say. If the defense could go return to form from 2023, because good Lord, they were terrible last
year. The Browns.
We talked about that last week, and to one thing to say about the defense, they were on the field so damn much last year. And I think that was a big problem because the Browns, whether it was Watson, whether it was Winston, whether it was Dorian Thompson-Robinson, whoever played, they turned the ball over willy-nilly and constantly. And the defense was put in a lot of crappy spots last year, and it wore those guys down. I mean, they were on the field just too much.
My concern with the defense, though, is that you had a zone scheme with Joe Woods, and that didn't work. And then you went to... Why is he slipping my name right now?
Jim Schwartz,
obviously, and you ran now primarily man defense. Well, with the man defense, I mean, it's really you have to rely on your players a lot, and our corners are not as good anymore. Other than Ward, who had probably his best year that he's ever going to have last year, and then you have
Emerson and Newsome,
who aren't very good anymore at all, and then JOK is gone this year too, and that's a huge blow.
Well, I completely, and I said it last week, I think the X factor that's going to determine how well this defense plays is Brown's second-round pick, Carson Schlesinger, because he's going to have to step into that JOK type role, and it's going to depend on how he plays, I think, on whether that defense is going to be the 2023 Browns defense or the 2024 Browns defense. Now, I think going back to the run game, Rob, that you had brought up, I think the Browns actually do have... I think they can have almost like a Cinderella path to the playoffs this year. And what I mean by that is if you look at that 2017-2018 Jacksonville Jaguars team, they had an amazing defense, an amazing ground game, and Blake Bortles, nothing great, but didn't turn the ball over that year. And they went to the AFC Conference Championship game. I'm not saying that I feel like that's what the Browns' path is to the AFC Championship game, but I feel like that this team is built pretty similarly, to that 2017 Brown or 17 Jaguars.
I think a lot of things have to go right, and the one thing that the Jaguars benefit of is the rest of the division stunk it up.
True.
That year. This Browns division's, I mean, Baltimore's going to be good. Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin, I guess, and
you can never count Pittsburgh out.
Aaron Rodgers, who the hell knows what's going to happen there?
9-8,
and the Bengals. They're kind of a mess.
They're
going to
They're going to be interesting this year.
Yeah, I mean the whole Hendrickson situation and all that, but it'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah, I think the Bengals, as long as you have Joe Burrow under center, you're gonna have a competitive year.
Yeah, you're going to be in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we have this whole long Browns conversation. I don't think they're really going to get much over 5 to 6 wins, but
yeah, I don't know. It's too early for me to start putting a win total prediction on it, but I don't know. I'm not all super optimistic.
I sidetracked the hell out of us though, so keep moving through.
Oh no,
the itinerary.
It's
here.
always we always enjoy talking about the Browns. They're a ratings booster. People like hearing about the Browns.
I know you do.
Yeah.
Anyhow, let's talk about the AFC North. Jair Alexander going to play for the Ravens. Big contract dispute, not wearing the green and gold anymore, I guess.
Yeah.
And he's heading to the Ravens to be with his college teammate Lamar Jackson. You'd have to believe Lamar had a heavy hand in Jair going to the Ravens.
Yeah, I actually read a report that Jair Alexander had more money on the table and opted to go to the Ravens because of Lamar.
I believe that.
I do too.
Does Jair still have a lot left in the tank? Is he still an elite corner? What do you fellas think?
I would say I don't know if he's elite anymore, but I would still consider him to be above average, and I think he's joining a secondary now where there's no pressure on him to be an elite shutdown corner. He's going to a secondary with Marlon Humphrey. The corner they just drafted, was it Nate Wiggins? I believe they drafted from Clemson last year in the first round, who had a solid rookie year. They got Malachi Starks in the draft this year, and then obviously Kyle Hamilton's a stud. Yeah, I think he's going into a perfect situation where there's no pressure on him to perform as an elite corner, and it's scary. It's of course we got to go up against him twice a year now, so it's scary from a Browns fan perspective. But I think it's a brilliant move from Jair's standpoint. I think it's a brilliant move from the Ravens' standpoint.
Absolutely, I could not agree more. Like this segment, I've last segment I very much disagreed with you. This segment I very much agree. I think you spelled it out perfectly. He goes into a situation where there's not much pressure on him. He has to be a little bit above average. And listen, I trust anybody in a John Harbaugh defense.
Yep.
I mean, you bring in a player of his caliber into a John Harbaugh defense, those two are going to figure it out. That's like peanut butter and jelly right there. I mean, come on now. Like, listen, the Ravens just I don't know. If you were explaining football to a caveman, you would say the Ravens know how to football because they just do. Like they bring in good players, and like to wrap it like back to the baseball conversation, like you look at a team like the Guardians that just like, oh, we're gonna look at guys OBP and we're gonna see what kind of prospects we have, and like no, the Ravens just they go see good player, get good player.
That's a great analogy.
No, it's spot on because I think like the two organizations in the NFL that you can speak to 100% about this are the Ravens and the Eagles specifically, because I feel like every single time when it comes NFL draft season in particular, neither of those teams draft any position that they need. They're just like, oh, this is the best player here. Let's just take him and we'll figure it out later, and that player ends up being a stud.
And to your point about the draft conversation, all the draft geeks never grade those two teams with great grades, and they always seem to find good players anyhow. Minus what the geeks say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like people grade the Ravens drafts pretty well.
Look, like they went after Derrick Henry, like, and it was a phenomenal selection, like a phenomenal get for them.
That seemed like one of those two that was almost destined to happen when he didn't re-sign with the Titans.
They went after Odell Beckham, and say what you want about his tumultuous tenure in Cleveland, but like, they said that this guy might have some football talent left, so we're gonna go get him and see what happens. And obviously things didn't work out there, but like. It's very simple for them, and I like the way John Harbaugh runs that. He's a see good player, get good player. And you want to talk about the draft? Look how many teams passed on Lamar Jackson, and that's exactly what they did. They saw Lamar Jackson, and they said, wow, that guy's good at football. He might be a little bit better at running than he is at passing, but he's really good at football. Let's get him and figure it out.
Yeah, but if you remember correctly, the Ravens were also a team that passed on Lamar Jackson because it was like 5 or 6 picks prior. They had picked Hayden Hurst, the tight end, before him, and then traded back into the first round. But to your point, they went after the player that fell, and they got the 5th-year option on the quarterback, which was brilliant. And then to your Odell Beckham point, I think it's actually a very similar situation that they're bringing Jair Alexander to, the no-pressure situation. They brought Odell in. They already had Zay Flowers there. And it was like, okay, you're going to be our number 2, number 3 option. And then if you happen to have a game where you go off, obviously that's great.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, it's about time to wrap up the show. So what's that mean we're going to do, Kevin?
Odds and ends.
That's right. All right, let's start with the Stanley Cup. The Florida Panthers forming a dynasty down there in Sunrise. They beat the Edmonton Oilers and Connor McDavid. Held them to 1 goal the entire series, which is unbelievable. Wow. And they win the Stanley Cup over Edmonton 4-2. Florida, back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, the beginnings of a dynasty.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to say so at that point. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to see a lot of the Stanley Cup, but it does kind of break your heart for McDavid that he was only held to only one goal, and this is back-to-back cups that he's lost now, right?
Well,
or is this only a sec?
No, I think this is the first. But also, it's crazy that a player of his talent is.
No, because the Oilers played in the Stanley Cup last year.
Yeah, you are. I think you guys
they
are right.
did. It was 100%. It was that. Because it happened that it was the same two teams going back to back.
So regardless, though, it is crazy that a player of McDavid's caliber, and he's unbelievable, he's the best player in the league, has not won a cup yet.
Yeah, that is unbelievable.
So
what I mean, you do look at a dynasty, but like, what I really do enjoy about hockey is like there is a lot of parity. Like you take a look and you look at the last whatever it is, 10, 15 years of Stanley Cup champions, and Florida was just so bad for like so long.
They were awful.
And just like, I mean, from a geographical perspective, who the hell would say that they could play hockey in damn near Miami, Florida, close to the equator? But like, it's just funny the way that worked out. But anyways, yeah, it's good for them. They got a dynasty forming for sure, but it's good to see them win another one. And, they had, a great year.
All right. Well, basketball.
That's all I got to say.
Basketball wrapping up, getting close to wrapping up too, boys. The Thunder are up 3-2 against Indiana. Do you think the Thunder win this thing in 6? I predicted the Pacers in 7. So I'm predicting 3 straight Indiana wins now.
Yeah, last week I had predicted either, depending on how Game 4 had went, I predicted Thunder in 5 or 6. So I'm going to stick with that and say Thunder in 6. I think they're going to get it done.
I'll say the same. I have a little bit more to say about the NBA Finals as a whole, just because I think it's you guys know I like the NBA and it's a pressing topic for me. I do think the Thunder are ultimately going to wrap up the series in 6. I think the Thunder had a lot of firepower this year. Obviously, they went 68-14. They're historically the best defensive team to ever play in the NBA. I think that speaks to just how what's the word I want to use? Gritty and fun to watch the Pacers were this year. And, a lot, like the East is wide open, and a lot of people are talking crap on Halliburton because, he didn't have that many points. He had a couple games where he didn't have that many points. But, like, to those people, and there's a couple people, I don't know if you're listening to this, that tried to claim, I hope you're listening to this, you know who you are, that try to claim Tyrese Halliburton isn't even a top 30 player. And to that, I would say that is ludicrous. You must not watch the games because you don't understand what Tyrese Halliburton does on the floor. I mean, the spacing that he creates. If you look when the Pacers play, if you look at all the hockey assists that Tyrese Halliburton gets, that's because he knows how to draw defenders to one side, and he knows how to work with his offensive teammate that the defenders are drawn to his side of the floor, and then the other side of the floor is going to open up. He understands basketball. He understands how to move offensively. Tyrese Halliburton is one of the brightest young players we have in this game. Of course, he's probably not a top 10 player because he's just raw talent-wise. He's not as good as some of the other studs we have in this game. But if you just look at it pound for pound, what he brings to the table on a nightly basis, the Pacers are in a great position for a lot of years to come, especially if they can retain Siakam. I loved what I saw from the Pacers this year. I loved it. And a lot of Cavs fans out there, you know who you are too, want to talk crap and say the Pacers are weird. And weird, there's another word that they would like to use for that. But like the Pacers are this and that, and they just It comes from a place of jealousy. Like, why do we hate the Pacers? Because they just outplayed us pound for pound. As Cleveland fans, we shouldn't hate the Pacers. We should look at the Pacers and say, "Damn, that should be us. That should be us." Because we have the players to do it. The Pacers, when you looked at them, they didn't have the players to do it, but they were coached well, and they worked hard, and they played the game the right way, and they got to where they are because of those reasons. And I could rant about the Pacers all day because it frustrates me so much to see the general NBA discourse about the Pacers and the way that people talk about them. Those people don't understand basketball, and it hurts my heart as a true basketball fan that basketball is in a bad place. Just from the fandom knowledge perspective, it's good that people are watching, but it's bad that people look at the game the way they do. Is if you don't have a guy that's going to get you 50 or 60 every night, then they're a bad team or they don't mean anything. Like, it's crap, and it just frustrates me. Sorry.
No, I actually want to touch on your point about Tyrese Halliburton, because not only do I think he's one of the best younger players in the league, up and coming player. I wouldn't even say up and coming anymore. I think he's probably a top 20 player in the NBA pretty easily, I would say. But I think he's one of the most complete players in the entire NBA. I think he plays phenomenal defense. I think his defense is completely underrated. I think he makes the right basketball play. To your point about the hockey assists, like, you don't see those plays show up in the stat sheet, nor do they show them on the highlight reels either. So you got to be watching those games in order to figure that out. He makes the right play most of the time down the court. He's a great three-point shooter. He's a great ball handler in and of itself, and he's actually not a bad rebounder either. There was a game, these playoffs, I forget if it was in the finals or not, he was like a rebound away from a triple-double. Like, Tyrese Halliburton does just about everything correctly on the basketball floor, and we're ripping him because he has like a serious leg injury and scored 4 points in a finals game. Like, grow up.
And again, it's not about the points output. It's really not with Tyrese Halliburton. Look at what the Pacers did in the regular season without him on the floor. That speaks to what exactly the kind of player he is. I mean, there's a reason Rick Carlisle, we know, is a basketball savant. He's one of the brightest minds in the entire game. He understands the game better than anybody could hope to. And there's a reason that even Halliburton at 50% of himself is going out there and still playing, because it's his IQ. he understands how to get guys open. He understands when to run the pick and roll. He understands these things that just, I could go for days and days, but
I think the gist that you're getting at, Rob, is that they just, no matter whether he's injured or not, they trust him with the basketball in his hands.
Right. And let's not forget, like, when he doesn't average as many points as some of the heavy hitters in the game, but, like, just pound for pound, if you need to go get a bucket, like, you need somebody to beat you off the dribble and get inside, I'm taking Halliburton a lot of times over a lot of other guys. Certainly over 30 other players in the league.
Yeah, I would argue maybe 3 or 4 more players, with one of them being who he's facing, SGA.
Yeah.
Like, other than that, I mean, Halliburton, you could argue probably a top 5-6 player at doing that.
I also want to say one more thing. I know we're running really short on time. I want to say one thing about the NBA in general, and where I'm really upset about the discourse of basketball in general, of where we're at right now, is when you mention SGA, and I know sometimes you do agree or disagree with what I'm about to say, Kevin, but this foul baiting narrative is really driving me insane. I can't stand it. When you tell me that a player is a foul baiter, I'm going to tell you don't know basketball that well. Because guess what? A player that foul baits understands how to put their body in the position to get to the foul line. That's what basketball, if that's how somebody can effectively score and put their team in a position to win the game, it's not foul baiting. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not bad hoops or whatever people want to call it.
Unethical hoops.
Unethical hoops. Unethical hoops is bullshit. I'm pointing at the camera because there's a lot of people out there, and if you're listening, you know who you are. Unethical hoops is bullshit. Learn the game of basketball. If you're a good player, you know how to get to the line. They teach you that when you're in 4th grade.
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to take anything away from SGA, because I know I've been very 50-50 on that take, because the standpoint that I have is that I would rather watch the blocked shots or the made layups or whatever that is, as opposed to the free throws that can happen all the time. Like, that's it's when it comes to watching, it's much more watchable to not watch the free throws happening all the time. But no, I do agree with your point. If there's rules in place that you can make your body, that you can put your body in that position to get to the free throw line, then yeah, you can take advantage of it and do it. But at the same time, his mid-range shot is unbelievable. It's not like every single time down the floor he's shooting free throws. Like, you don't score 35 points. You're not averaging 35 points a game, and 28 of them are off of free throws.
100%.
It's not how it works.
The foul baiting narrative is BS. I'm sorry. It is. And again, I said there's a reason the best players are the best at it. Go look at the numbers. The numbers back it up. MJ went to the line a lot. LeBron in his heyday went to the line a lot. Still does. I mean, you go across the history of the game, and you'll see that the best players, that people consider the best players in the history of the game, also somehow lead the league in free throws, or lead in the history of the game in free throws.
All right.
Rant over.
Well, I appreciate you guys' insight on the NBA Finals, because we are going to move on to our next thing here in Odds and Ends. Jawad Williams coming back to the Cavs as an assistant coach, and he was with the Sacramento Kings as an assistant and developmental coach out there. He played for the Cavs. He's a local guy, St. Ed's guy, and then went to UNC. So Cavs bringing him on as an assistant. Which, I mean, I guess not a bad move to bring back a local guy. Not much more to say about it.
Yeah, I know. I think it's a cool story that he's from the area and he was a prior Cavs player and he's back in the organization. I mean, I don't know his coaching philosophy or anything like that. I just think it's kind of a cool story that he's back in the organization and back in the city.
Yeah, no problem with it.
Can he help us get past the second round?
Yeah, hopefully.
We're going to find out.
If he can, I like it. If he can't,
we'll find out in about 11 months.
Don't let the door hit you, the dear Lord split you, as our mother says.
That's right. And then finally, for Odds and Ends, guys, talking about the NBA, this kind of relates. You see this a lot in the NBA with superstars moved. You don't see it in baseball. The Rafi Devers trade, he goes to the San Francisco Giants for Kyle Harrison, Jordan Hicks, and 2 prospects, one being the Giants' first-round pick last year, James Tubbs. Again, not something you see in baseball a lot, but everything that happened all the way back to spring training, it's not super shocking that this divorce happened between Rafi and the Sox.
Right.
I think it's more of the timing and that they didn't wait till the end of the year. But I think that he fits the Giants really well. He's exactly what they needed out there, a left-handed power stick. And then Giants don't get guys to sign in free agency because they don't want to hit in that park, so they traded for one. I think this move's going to really work out for the Giants and really bite the Red Sox in the ass.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting how Rafael Devers is his philosophy since the beginning of the year has
Changed in
completely done a
24
180.
hours?
He was strictly going to play third base for the Red Sox. Didn't even want to play first. Didn't even want to DH really.
No.
And then he gets to the Giants. His first game he DHs, and he's willing to play any position that the Giants offer. So clearly he was very unhappy in Boston. But his first at bat for the Giants, Slade Ciccone had something to say about it, didn't he, Jerome?
Struck him out, and he did go 2 for 5 last night. I swear I've watched him just murder the Guardians over the years, honestly, all the way back to when they were the Indians too. But I think it's interesting too because Devers was kind of like when they traded Mookie, he was our Jose. He was the face of the franchise, and I can understand where Red Sox fans are upset because you let Mookie go, who's a generational talent. Now Raffy's out the door. Xander walked in free agency. This is the Boston Red Sox we're talking about. This is not, some small market cheapo, team.
It's a historic baseball franchise.
Exactly. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I must have been too cold over in Boston for him in the winters. Now he gets that nice California weather.
Yeah.
I think it kind of relates back to the conversation that we were having around football and around baseball. It's like, it seems like a move that Buster Posey obviously executed, and it's, hey, see good player, go get good player. And,
right.
He's not thinking too much about the OBP or the future years on contract or whatever. All that nerdy shit is out the door. Buster Posey said, I see a good player, I'm going to go get the good player.
And that's where I think sometimes baseball gets too analytical, where you have these Harvard geeks running it. Like your point, Buster Posey is probably a Hall of Fame catcher. So him running the Giants is like, okay, Buster's a good player. I think this is why you should have more players running front offices, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
100%.
So absolutely. So Raffy will now be a Giant. He's got 8.5 years to go, so I can understand why the Red Sox fans were upset. But Kevin, to your point, it didn't get off on good terms. I can understand where he was upset though a little bit at first, where they tell him throw away your glove, you'll never play in the field again, and then Casas goes down, and then they're like, oh, by the way, we actually need you to play first. But when Raffy sat down with just him, the owner, and Alex Cora, and he refused to play first, you can't bite the hand that feeds you. John Henry writes your checks from the Fenway Sports Group. If the owner is specifically asking you to play first base, he probably should have if he wanted to stay a Red Sox.
Which he didn't, obviously.
Which he didn't because he said no, and a week and a half later he's a Giant. So
yeah,
Wonder what LeBron had to say on the matter. That's what matters.
I didn't see LeBron tweet out anything.
Yeah, he's part of the Fenway Sports Group. So
yeah, I don't know. LeBron...
I will say very quickly also, it's going to be a hell of a division race out there in the NL West.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's going to be a heck of a
Dodgers,
race.
Giants, Padres, all heavy hitters.
And Diamondbacks, I mean, they're starting to come around a little bit. They have
Go
a lot
Padres.
of injuries.
Go Friars.
Go Padres. All right, well, that'll do it for this week's episode. You can like and subscribe anywhere on any of our platforms. You can like us on like our reels and follow along on Instagram and TikTok. We're available there at CLE Sports Realm. Derek works hard to make those videos happen for you. He works hard on this podcast in general. He really does. He's sweating over there. He's working so hard.
Yeah, he is.
And
he works his ass off.
Yeah.
Go give him some love.
Anyway, make sure to like and subscribe and comment. Like I said, we're available on YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. Thank you for your continued support, and we'll talk to you next week. Have a great week, everybody.
Go
Give
Tribe.
us some love. Peace out.